of Frampton. I am an assistant professor in the School of Communication Studies. Interpersonal communication, I teach it for both graduates and undergraduates, but I'll talk about the undergraduate class. At the beginning of the semester, I have students fill out an About Me form. So that just asks them about their interests and their hobbies and the strengths they think that they have in schoolwork and things like that, and if they know someone else in the class. And based on their responses, I create pairs for them for this activity, where I look to see if students have maybe common interests, maybe common career goals or hobbies or something like that. And it's a student that they don't already know. So when they get to class that day, I'm like, hey, I picked out someone I thought you might be able to be friends with or at least make a connection with, and we're going to do an activity. And so they find their partner. And then what they do is we actually use the We Are Not Really Strangers game, which has 3 different levels of cards that have questions on them. And the first level is called perception, and it just asks them about impressions of each other. They make silly guesses about if they've ever like been late to a meeting or something like that. Then there's a level called connection, so that encourages more self-disclosure. And then the final level is called reflection, where they reflect on their interaction with each other. And then there's also a final card where they're supposed to write a handwritten note to each other that they read after the game is over. So for our class, what students do is they find their partner and then they're told to read and answer at least 4 questions or cards at each of the levels before they progress to the next one. And so they do this for a while. They can do more than 4 if they want to stay at one of those easier levels where it's surface level information. And then towards the end, I give them instructions for their final card, which in our class is just they're going to write a note that's really encouraging for their classmate that their classmate will read after they leave class for the day. And so they do all of that, and at the very end, we have a debriefing session where they go through different discussion questions that ask them to link the activity back to concepts from our interpersonal communication class, like mutual self-disclosure, that's both in breadth and depth of self-disclosure. They link it back to uncertainty reduction, different types of impressions that they form, and they just talk about how their experience really relates to all of those things we've talked about and how their interactions are affected by different factors like self-disclosure. Do ask about their strengths in that interest form, but I mainly have designed this activity based on the PERMA framework of student well-being, which is adopted by the university as our model of student well-being, just based on our Strengths Advisory Council suggestions. So I really focus on cultivating a positive experience in classroom environment through having students cultivate those positive relationships, those positive emotions, and engagement, which is part of that PERMA acronym. So more to your question then, what I do and how students respond is they seem really excited about the opportunity to get to know their classmates. Some of them get really into it and share a lot of information. I've had several students just come up to me afterwards and say, you did such a good job matching us. Like, I can't believe I didn't know that I've had classes with this person and seen them, but I didn't know I had so much in common with them before. We also do a pretty good job of being able to link the activity back to our course content in that debriefing session, which is really encouraging that they're able to make those connections. And other than that, they just, like I said, seem to enjoy it. When we got Tennessee Voice comments back yesterday, I had one student especially write about the activity in there saying, I was really happy and appreciated that she gave us an opportunity and encouraged us to make friends with someone else in the class. So that's always nice when they say that in evaluations at the end of the day. Something more funny. So this is the second semester I've done this activity, and the first semester I took out all of the cards that are called wild cards from the game box because they're kind of silly things like shouting about your favorite cereal. I didn't take all of them out apparently this semester. And I left one of them in that had students stare at each other, like, just lean in and stare each other in the eyes and not say anything for 60 seconds. And I didn't know the student had drawn that card, and so they came up to me afterward and said, "This is such a weird card." And I was like, "Oh, really? What did you get?" And they told me what they did, and it was really funny because, like, it was so uncomfortable, and if someone did this to me in real life, I would never, like, be friends with them. But it did open up a conversation for how eye contact plays a role in our interaction. So I guess it did kind of link back to course content, even though it was kind of a silly thing to have them to do. Activity does illustrate concepts from, specifically interpersonal communication or social psychology or family sciences. But any class, regardless of the discipline, can help students form connections with each other. So, doing things like an About Me form and then grouping students based on their common interests or maybe their career goals, and then telling them, hey, like I put you in a group, see if you can figure out what you have in common, would encourage them to form those relationships with each other, which then, according to research, shows that they're going to be more engaged and excited about the class just by default of having those connections made within the class. Another thing I've learned from other colleagues in other disciplines that I've used in my own classes now is actually implementing icebreaker questions, not just on the first day of class, but every single class. That's how some of them have started classes in like engineering, for example. And that helps students really form relationships with each other and get to know each other on a more personal level beyond just working on coursework together. So just providing more opportunities where students can get to know each other and talk about things maybe other than course specific content would be helpful. And we all have to form relationships with our coworkers in the future. So it is a helpful skill to help them develop.